Who eats whom? Evelyn was sitting on the back porch watching a robin hop across the lawn. It tilted its head, listened, then plunged its beak into the ground and yanked out a fat, wriggling earthworm. Gross, Evelyn said. Then she thought for a moment. Jason, what eats robins? Hawks, Jason said from the doorway. And cats. And foxes. And what eats hawks? Jason grinned. Now you're asking the right question. He came back with the book and opened its brass clasp. The page showed a golden African savanna under a blazing sun. The ink swirled, and they were standing in waist-high grass under an enormous sky. The chain of life. The sun beat down on the grassland, and Jason pointed at the golden grass swaying around them. This is where every food chain starts. The sun plants use sunlight to make their own food from carbon dioxide and water, a process called photosynthesis. That makes plants producers. They produce the food that everything else depends on. A grasshopper clung to a stem, chewing steadily. That grasshopper is a primary consumer, a herbivore, Jason said. It eats the plant. A field mouse darted through the grass, clutching a seed. Also a primary consumer. A puff adder lay coiled in the shade, its tongue flickering. It struck lightning fast and caught the mouse. Secondary consumer, Jason said. A carnivore that eats the herbivore. High above, a martial eagle folded its wings in dove. The snake never saw it coming. Tertiary consumer, the apex predator, Jason said. Nothing regularly hunts a martial eagle. The chain ends here. So it goes sun, grass, grasshopper, mouse, snake, eagle? Evelyn counted on her fingers. Exactly. But here's the key, at every step, about 90% of the energy is lost as heat. Only 10% gets passed up. That's why there are always way more grass plants than grasshoppers, more grasshoppers than mice, more mice than snakes, and very few eagles. The higher you go, the less energy there is to support life. The ocean's invisible pasture. The book's pages turned, and they plunged into a sunlit ocean. Jason scooped up a handful of water. It looked clear, but under the book's magnifying glow, Evelyn could see thousands of tiny, shimmering organisms drifting in the water, each one smaller than the period at the end of a sentence. Phytoplankton, Jason said. Microscopic plant-like organisms that float near the surface. They're the most important living things on the planet, and most people have never heard of them. Why are they so important? They produce more than half of all the oxygen on Earth, more than every rainforest combined. And they're the base of the ocean's food chain. Tiny animals called zooplankton eat them. Small fish eat the zooplankton. Bigger fish eat the small fish. And at the top, a great white shark glided past, silent and enormous. Evelyn squeezed Jason's arm. And it's not just a chain, Jason continued. It's a web. A tuna eats anchovies and squid. A seal eats tuna and crabs. An orca eats seals and fish. Everything is connected to everything else in a tangled net. Pull one thread, and the whole web shakes. Nature's recyclers. But what happens when things die? Evelyn asked. Does the chain just end? That's the most important part, Jason said. The book showed them a forest floor covered in fallen leaves, dead branches, and the remains of a deer. Mushrooms were sprouting from the deer's body. Beetles burrowed through the leaves. Earthworms pulled fragments of leaf into the soil. Invisible bacteria broke down everything into basic nutrients. These are decomposers, Jason said. Fungi, bacteria, earthworms, beetles. They break down dead plants and animals and release the nutrients back into the soil. Plants absorb those nutrients through their roots, and the cycle starts all over again. Without decomposers, dead things would just pile up forever. Nutrients would be locked away. Nothing new could grow. A single mushroom cap is just the tip, Jason added. Underground, the real organism, a web of thin white threads called mycelium, can stretch for miles, connecting tree roots together. Scientists call it the wood wide web. And a single teaspoon of healthy soil contains about 6 billion microorganisms, more than there are people on Earth. The day the wolves came back. The book's pages turned to a sprawling mountain valley, Yellowstone National Park. "Let me tell you the most incredible food chain story ever," Jason said. In 1926, the last gray wolves in Yellowstone were killed. People thought they were dangerous. Without wolves to hunt them, the elk population exploded. Elk stood by the rivers and ate everything: young willows, aspens, cottonwoods. The river banks went bare. Without tree roots holding the soil, the banks eroded. Rivers widened and became shallow. Beavers had no willows to build dams, they disappeared. Without beaver dams, streams ran straight and fast. Fish lost their pools. Songbirds lost their nesting trees. The whole ecosystem was falling apart. Evelyn stared at the barren riverbanks. All because of the wolves? All because the wolves were gone. Then, in 1995, scientists released 14 wolves back into Yellowstone. The wolves hunted elk, but more importantly, they moved them. Elk couldn't stand in one spot eating everything anymore. They kept moving, always watching. Willows and aspens grew back along the rivers. Beavers returned and built dams. Streams narrowed and deepened, with more bends and pools. Fish populations recovered. Eagles and bears had more food. Even the rivers changed shape. Tree roots held the banks firm, and the channels became narrower and more winding. 14 wolves changed the rivers, Evelyn whispered. Scientists call it a trophic cascade, Jason said. One change at the top ripples all the way down through every level of the food chain. Everything is connected. Every single thing. The book brought them home. Through the window, Evelyn could see a spider's web glistening between the porch posts in the lamplight. A moth fluttered into it. The spider darted out and wrapped it in silk. Even our porch is a food chain, Evelyn said. Light attracts moths. Moths feed spiders. And if a bird eats the spider tomorrow morning, Jason said, latching the brass clasp, the chain keeps going. In the darkness, Evelyn listened to the faint buzzing of insects outside, millions of tiny lives, all eating, all being eaten, all part of the great web that connected everything to everything. "Good night, food chain," she murmured. "Keep turning."